let's take a look at a feature inside of CS3 that kind of snuck by a lot of people here. And it comes in handy if you are a photographer, whether you're an amateur or a pro, but the key is you're a photographer that is using Adobe Bridge for your photo management. Okay, you're not using Lightroom or some type of another program. You're using Bridge mostly for managing your photos. And it starts off with getting the photos onto your computer. So if you open up Bridge CS3, and you can do this right from Photoshop, just go into Photoshop and choose File, Browse. And inside Bridge, you'll see here right under the File menu is an option for getting your photos from the camera. This is actually pretty useful. And, I've said this before. If you've ever actually been out and seen me speak on workflow, I've never really been a fan of these auto downloaders. And I've got to say, with the incarnation of Lightroom and also Bridge CS3, that I'm starting to become more of a fan of them. And the main reason is they're starting to take steps away from the workflow. So this is the basic dialog here, but what I'm going to do here is I'll go through it really quick and then I'll show you the advanced one. So at the top we have where do you want to get your photos from. So right now I have a card reader plugged in and you can choose that option here. Next thing we have here is location. So where do you want to put these photos? All right, so you can see here they're going to get put into my pictures folder and it's going to get put in here as a shot date. Now I can change that and I can choose something else. I can choose today's date, or I could choose a custom name. And that's probably one of the most useful because I would give this some specific date. I would say, Christmas, and it's not Christmas, but I'd say Christmas 2007 or something a little bit more descriptive than that. I actually typically, just so you know my workflow, I actually typically use, let's say today is September 10th, so I'd use 09/10/2007 underscore and then some type of a shoot name. So this could be, Ryan Photos or some type of a name that describes that shoot. Next thing under rename, you can choose to rename. So this is something that we used to do as a step afterwards. A lot of people want to rename their photos. We used to do this in Bridge after you already imported them, but here we can do it while we're importing them. And that's the key thing here is I haven't imported these photos yet. Okay, these photos are still on the card reader. This is your import. All right, you don't have to drag them onto your desktop and move them to a folder and do all that stuff now. You're letting this do it for you. A couple examples here. We can preserve the current file name if you do rename them. You can open Adobe Bridge, convert to DNG. This is pretty big because, again, this is another step. If you're one of those folks out there that is converting to DNG at this time, well, you can do it on the import. You don't have to wait and do it later on. And then the next option here is save copies too. So this lets you back up while you're importing. So I could save copies to an external drive right here. All right, so it gives me a backup. But we also have an advanced dialog here. And if you look along the right-hand side, one of the things it does is it gives you a preview of the photos that it is about to import. And you could go in here and you could, if you knew you just didn't want to import one, you could just uncheck it because, why even get it onto your computer? The next thing over here, you still have all of your naming information, still have a lot of the same information that you had, but one very, very important area is metadata. So once again, this is one of those things that, what did we used to do? We would copy the photos onto our computer, put them into the right folder, possibly rename them, and back them up. So all those things can be done right from within this dialog so far. Now, after you've done all that and you've made your backups and done all that, one of the things that we would do is apply metadata. Copyright information, any address or contact information that we want to make sure travels with our photos. That was one of the vital steps in the workflow. Now we're doing it all in the import process. We can apply metadata. So I can put my author and copyright information right down here. Or what's really cool is I can use a metadata template. And right as we finish this, I'll show you where those templates are. But right now, there's a basic metadata template, or I can choose none. But what's really cool about it, so at this point, you would just go and press import, all right? And this would start importing your photos onto the computer, and it would do everything that you told it to here. So let's go ahead and get out of this. So that's how you get them in. The one little thing that I mentioned was metadata templates. So if I were to go under File, And actually, I got to go into, let's actually find a photo here. So let me go to pictures and I'll go to wedding photos. Now we'll go under file. And if I go down to file info, okay, so once I choose a photo, I go into file info. This opens up the metadata area, basically where you add all the metadata to your photos. Well, at the top right of the screen here, you can click on that and you can save it as a metadata template. And what this means is that you go in here, you create the metadata template once, and then when you're back inside that import dialog, you'll have access to that metadata template. So you can use your own custom templates inside there as well. So, mentioned earlier, this is mainly for photographers, whether you're an amateur or a pro, using Bridge as your photo management software. So you're not using Lightroom, you're using Bridge, which is still perfectly acceptable. And it's a good way to kind of get off on the right foot and make things consistent from the beginning when it comes to actually getting your photos onto the computer. Well, that's it for this week. I will talk to you again very soon.